Good morning. It is time for a Sunday Live with Regert. I am Deanna and I am the Peachy Pathfinder, and this is my channel Regert. And I'm just trying to make sure that this is good to go. Okay. All right. Just doing a little computer work here, making sure that I am okay. And let's see here. Looks like everything is in order just about. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get anybody logged in here. All right, good. Looks like notifications are on. Great, wonderful. This is our third live, okay? And I want to thank those who have attended our previous lives. This is our third live, okay? I want to thank those who have attended our previous. Okay. I was just checking my audio, making sure that I came through okay. And it looks like I have. I'm in a different location of the house today because I'm doing some housework. Just trying to keep it neat around here. But anyway, I'm in the kitchen area because I've got a lot going on, you know, multitasking. But anyway, this is our third episode. I want to thank you very much for joining me. Again, my name is Deanna. I had a chance to give a little bit of my background in regards to my childhood last week, and I mentioned that this week I was going to talk about my homeless situation, one of my many episodes in my life. And today I want to get into that, but before I do that, I want to get a few preliminary things out of the way. First of all, I did mention that I am on Facebook. I do have a Facebook page. And that Facebook page does have certain requirements in regards to me doing live. So starting in mid-August, I will be broadcasting simultaneously at 10 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook. For those of you who are subscribed to Facebook, if you have been tuning into the YouTube lives, thank you very much for coming over. But starting in mid-August, you'll also be able to watch my lives on Facebook as well. Excuse me. So I'll be broadcasting simultaneously. So that is something that I'll be doing. I've never done that before, so I'll be working the bugs out in regards to that. The response in regards to my first video, I'm just overwhelmed. I checked the other day and we've got over 1,000 views on the introductory video. I'm just amazed with that, and I'm truly thankful for your support. The channel is growing. Thank you very much for tuning in on my daily messages. I greatly appreciate that. And as I stated before, if it just helps one person, the experience that I've had, the knowledge that I've gained, that's all. I'm just in the spirit of help. I just want to let somebody know that you're not the only one who's gone through what you've gone through. That somebody is out there, that there is hope. You know, it's not just gloom and doom, you know. And I just want to share my experience with someone in hopes that it will help them through whatever it is they're going through. And I'm going to continue doing that every single day until whenever. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get into the homeless situation. But before I do that, I wanted to let you know I do have merch. I started merch on Teespring, and I've shared the link already in my community tab, so you might want to check that out. There is a discount code that is in the message, so make sure if you're going to order my merch, make sure you apply that discount code. And I will be starting a Patreon very soon, but I want us to reach a certain amount of subscribers before I do that. And so that way you'll have a chance to take a look. And thank you for whoever came in. I do appreciate that. And I want to see who it is. If I had an idea who it was. I want to see who it is. I want to see who it is. And I can't see who it is. See, I'm trying to learn how to do this live thing. Well, welcome and thank you for coming in. I do appreciate that. But what I'll do is I'll check later on and see who stopped by, and I'll say hello to you. But thank you very much for joining me this morning. But as I mentioned, I'm going to start a Patreon a little bit later on. And but I do have the merch line going on right now. Check the community tab on my channel page where I do have a YouTube code that you can apply during checkout for a discount on my merch. I have t-shirts, I have coffee cups and camping mugs, and I also have stickers. And I think I have a hat. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's what I have. Also have a pullover. Yes, I do have a pullover as well. That's for Regert, and that's also for my other channel, the Peachy Pathfinder. So make sure you check the community tab. Also on Facebook, I also have, and excuse me, but I'm facing the backyard window, and it looked like there was somebody in the yard, but there wasn't. It was just somebody on the back street that passed by. Okay. There shouldn't be anybody in the yard. The dogs are back there. I'm going to show you my dogs in a clip a little bit later on this week. But anyway, the dogs wouldn't let anybody back there. Trust me, they're pit bulls. They won't. Anyway, yeah, so I've got much for the Peachy Pathfinder as well as Regert. The pullovers, the shirts, the mugs. So check that out. And also, if you're on Facebook, I've also posted the link to the merch, and there's also a Facebook code that's associated with that on Facebook, so you might want to check that out as well. Your support is greatly appreciated. I also have on my Peachy Pathfinder page, there's a way that you can contribute to the channel. I don't have it on Regert as of yet, but I do have it on my Peachy Pathfinder page. And also I have a Cash App, which is $ Peachy Pathfinder if you want to donate. And also if you want to donate via PayPal, it's under the Peachy Pathfinder. And understand that all donations go toward production of the channel. It covers material, things like, of the uploads, and, the equipment, because, certain equipment is required for this. Anything, it goes towards the production of the channel. It's not anything to line my pockets, but it's just to keep things going, so I could be able to be here on Sunday and do the lives and keep the videos going, because just like any other venture, it costs money. And, so I'm greatly appreciative of that. Of course, it's not required, but only if you have it in your heart to do so, and there's no, requirement for that at all. I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart, and I just feel I have a message I need to spread, and it was just in my spirit to do so. So, and I kind of gave a background as to what inspired me last week as to why I wanted to do the messages. So if you haven't watched that video, please do so. It's in my list of lives. Please feel free to do so. It's very informative in regards to my childhood and what inspired me to do the channel in the first place. So with that being said, let me see what else I have, because I have to write stuff down in order to remember what I need to talk about. And let me check and see, because I don't want to leave anything out with you guys. So, and that's basically it. I did mention something about doing Zooms because, I do have a background in, I do have an education in psychology, and there are certain psychological issues that do apply to daily life that people aren't aware of. And what I want to do is I want to create a series of Zooms addressing certain psychological concepts and how they apply to daily life, so you can get a basic understanding of how important psychology is to us as humans. And what I'm going to do is I'm trying to organize that in a way and set up the pricing and set up the format and that type of thing. And I was thinking about doing that. I don't know if I want to do the Zooms on a weekly basis, which is a lot of work, or on a monthly basis. I have to, decide how many Zooms I'm going to do, the topics. I already have an idea. The pricing, which would be reasonable to you. And keep in mind, if I do the pricing, if you're a subscriber, you would have a special discount. Eventually, this channel is going to have a membership level that I'm going to be offering, which will be very affordable. There will be 3 different levels. And of course, if you're a channel member, you would have a discount, that type of thing. So that's something that's going to be coming in the future. I anticipate on doing that within the next couple of months. So I'll keep you posted in the lives in regards to the Zooms and what the topics are going to be. And everything's going to be in layman's terms. So that way it'll be something that you'll know. Because the big thing that I see, and I find it very frustrating, and of course, is something that I just don't understand. People think that psychology is not important, and I don't get that part. It's like, psychology is a study of the mind. So you're telling me that the study of the mind is not important in life? That doesn't make sense to me. How can you tell me that? So I just want to kind of start outlining these Zooms and create information that everybody understands to show you how important it is in daily life. And I will also include different daily situations and scenarios that will kind of help illustrate. So I'm working on that now. And hopefully that will be of some, assistance to a lot of people. And to help address a lot of things, because there are a lot of things that are going on in society right now that are affecting people mentally, and it's not helpful to have an attitude in society right now where we actually have a group of people, who actually believe that psychology is not important. It's not helpful right now because you have too many people that have mental health issues that are unaddressed because of this reason. And thank you very much for coming in. I do see you guys. I do appreciate you stopping by. Hello and thank you. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let that go because I could talk all day about it. And I don't want to bore you guys to death. So I'm going to go ahead and get into my homeless story. So, I went to graduate school. After I finished my undergrad in 2010, I was accepted into graduate school in Chicago, Illinois. And it was at Roosevelt University. And I was enrolled into the master's program for clinical psychology. It was actually I would say 2.5 to 3 year program. Unfortunately, I didn't finish because of monetary reasons as well. I just ran out of money and I just didn't want to get into any more debt. And I also lost my job because the contract ended. So when you have your back up against the wall, you have to make some decisions. And some people will say, well, I'll go ahead and sign on the dotted line again. And I was like, you know what, I just can't do anymore. I was already into debt over 80,000. And I was like, I'm not signing on the line again. I was to the point where, the contract that I had, because I was under contract with a company that was working with the Chicago Board of Elections, and that particular company, their contract ended with the city because the city decided they didn't want any more contract companies working with them in certain departments, and in the department that I was in with the voter registration didn't want any more contracts companies working with them at the time. So because of that, I lost my job, and I just couldn't afford to get any more debt. And basically I had to start thinking about survival. It's like, screw a student loan. I got to think about, how am I going to keep where I am, where I'm living, where is my next meal coming from, what's going on. So I'm shuffling around trying to do this, that, and the other just to rub two nickels together, and I'm worrying about what I was going to do. And you can't stay in a place like Chicago and not have an income. Excuse me, it's very humid right now. I've got the fan going, So basically a decision was made. Well, I was like, what, I lived in Hampton Roads before, and I'm very familiar with Hampton Roads. And I said to myself, well, let me start looking for something where I can use a little bit of psychological experience that I have and try to get a job, and using it, to make an income. So I got in contact with my brother who still lived in Hampton Roads, and I said, well, look, I lost my job, blah, blah, blah. And then basically he said, come stay with me for a while, you get on your feet. Okay, cool. And so what I did is I went ahead and just pulled myself together and pulled up stakes and moved back to Hampton Roads, which is where I am now. And eventually I wound up signing up with a temp agency and got a temp to hire job, working in a place that provided jobs for people with disabilities. And the people, and it was one of those jobs where it was kind of like light assembly type jobs. And there was a type of jobs where, people could come in, and a lot of people that they hired had some type of disability, whether it's physical, mental, or whatever. And it provided jobs for them so they could be self-sufficient, which was really great. So, and it wasn't just people who had those jobs. It was people. They also hired people like me as well, who worked with them also. But it was good for me to have that type of job too, because I had a psychological background. So that way, I was able to work with people like that as co-workers. Because I kind of understood who, what kind of conditions they had. I was able to communicate with them and be able to work with them side by side, So that was a great thing to do. And I worked third shift from 11 to 7, which was a big deal for me because I'd never done it. Well, I can't say I didn't do a shift like that before. It had been many, 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 many years since I'd done a shift like that. And so I did that for a while. And I enjoyed it. I really did. Stayed with my brother for a while and eventually wound up moving into the studio place. of my own, and did that for a few years. And but the thing is that the company that we was with, because it was light assembly, they had a lot of contracts also. You know, a lot of their contracts were associated with the government. And for those of you who ever dealt with government contracts are only for a certain period of time. And then after that period of time is over with, they go back to the round table and say, we need to renegotiate for another contract. Well, apparently this particular contract, once they went back to the table again, you know, because of all these logistical factors and production factors, this, that, and the other, they had to scale back. So eventually the company decided, well, we don't need a third shift anymore. So what they decided they wanted to do is they were going to take the third shift and decided that they were going to try to parcel out the people from the third shift and move them into the first and second shifts. Well, the first and second shifts were already partially full. So you've got a certain number of people on third shift that they were going to try to put in the first and second shift, but there weren't enough slots. So because of seniority, and you know, most of the cases was seniority, you know, some of us didn't have jobs anymore. And so I loved the job and I loved working the job. But the thing is again, because of contract, I wasn't able to keep the job anymore. Well, you know, eventually I was able to, you know, I went back to the agency to try and find something, and I worked jobs for a while. I was still able to keep a roof over my head for a while. And then eventually I wound up applying for a job with a tour bus company, but it was only a part-time position. But the position wasn't going to start for a few weeks. And I was kind of like, you know, finishing up a gig, and, you know, the apartment that I was in was more like a month-to-month situation, and that month I was kind of a little short on funds, and it was a struggle. It was a real struggle for me. And I was to the point where I was borrowing money and everything else, and it was just so stressful. And I was like, you know what, I need a break and I need to find out what's going on. Well, during that time, my father was already over 80 years old, and he had a living girlfriend for a very long period of time. And I would say the year or two before they broke up for whatever reason. You know, I was given this explanation that they broke up, which was a bit of a shocker because they had been together for so long. But I just took the explanation for whatever it was. And then all of a sudden she left and he was alone. And I said to myself, okay. But, you know, family was down there. They would check in on him. You know, I had a brother that lived on the next block, you know, him and his girlfriend. But then my brother got sick. And then my baby sister, she was around a lot because she lived right around the corner from my dad. So she was always checking in on him. So she was always around all the time. Her husband would check in on him, his baby brother, his baby sister. So family was always around my father because my father was just determined to be determined to be on his own, which I get that. So with family always being around, I never questioned what was going on. But I know I'll get around to the homelessness part, but see, I have to give a backstory on this as to why this happened. So eventually what I wound up doing, because of my situation with the job and the gap between my last assignment, I had to give up the studio place because I couldn't pay for the month. So I went ahead and locked up my stuff, and I said, well, I'm going to go down to Georgia and check on Dad, because I had first of all, I said, well, I hadn't been down to Georgia for a while. So I said, well, let me spend some time with Dad before this job starts. And I believe that was in May of 20. Oh, Lord. I can't remember what year it was. 2015? 2015. I want to say 2015. I think so. May of 2015, I think it was. Yeah, May 2015. And I went ahead on down there. I had a few weeks before the tour bus job started, which I was going to be a hostess on the tour bus. And I said I'll go down and sit with Dad for a while, chill out, see what's going on. Hey, Mr. Maud, how you doing? Thank you for coming in. Hey, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate you stopping in. Thank you for coming. Doing great, doing great. Just telling my story about eventually I became homeless, and I'm going to give a little backstory on that. So thank you for coming in. So I went down to Savannah, Georgia, and I decided to stay with Dad for a few weeks. Well, let me tell you guys, a few weeks turned into several months because when I went down there, I got a little bit more, I got a little bit more than I expected. You know, you ever been in a situation where you've been away from home and every time you call, everybody says everything's okay? Well, everything wasn't okay. I went back home and I found out that there was a little bit more to the story as far as to the breakup in regards to my father and his girlfriend. It was a little bit more nastier than I thought it was, and I'm not going to go into the gory details because that story's over. Dad's, I'm not going to air all that dirty laundry, but anyway, it was nastier than it was. As far as the family, checking in on them, they were checking in on them, but there were just a lot of things that Dad didn't share with me in regards to his finances and what needed to be taken care of. So I was collecting unemployment at the time. So when I got down there, I was like, maybe I need to stay a little bit longer and kind of help him out with this because there was a lot of things that he was not sharing, excuse me, with family members in regards to his finances. He had them under the impression that everything was okay, and it wasn't. And I truly believe that he didn't share this information. I truly believe. Out of pride, not that he was being deceptive, he was just being prideful. And the bottom line is he needed more help than he let on because he wanted to hold on to his independence. This is a man who was 80 years old who had his first job when he was 11 years old working on a milk truck to help help support his family because his daddy walked out on him. So you're talking about from the age of 11 years old to the age of 80-something years old, working and taking care of himself. It's hard to yield independence, especially being a man. So I get it. I'm not mad at him. But when you say that you need some kind of help, especially from your own child, somebody that you raised and supported and everything else, it's hard to say. He had arthritis, so he was walking with a cane. He had his own issues. He was already like 82, close to 83 years old, living at home. But he still had his right mind somewhat, little memory lapses here and there. But after a period of time, I kind of noted that there were some signs of dementia because he started displaying, emotional outbursts, some crying and things like that. And I noticed that, after a few months of staying with him. But I wound up deciding to let tour guide job go because he needed my help. And eventually I wound up using my unemployment checks to kind of help pay bills because there were a lot of things that were going to be cut off literally in the house, utilities and things like that, things that were necessary because he was overdrawn on bank accounts. He had loans that were taken out. He had back taxes that were due to the state that needed to be paid. And these were things that I am quite sure family members did not know about. So I would take my money because, I'm already living in the house with him anyway. Now, mind you, that rent was paid on time. Now, he remembered the rent, but everything else just wasn't paid. And he had income coming in, but it just wasn't enough. He just let the bill spiral out of control, and he had unnecessary subscriptions to different things that was coming out of his bank account that he had literally forgotten about. And it would cause his account to go into overdraft. So by the time his pension and his Social Security and his VA check hit the accounts, his accounts would be overdrawn so much to pay off the fees from subscriptions and all these unnecessary things that he would get off the internet from shopping and signing up for, or free trials he'd forgotten about and things, that he wouldn't have enough money to pay his bills. So he would be partially paying utility bills, partially paying insurance, partially paying for medical supplies and things that he needs, because he had, in addition to the arthritis, he had asthma as well. So he had different supplies and things that he needed. So he went and got a personal loan from a local place, and they were taking money out every single month, and then that cost was going up, and he just couldn't keep track of these things because, truth be told, and I didn't realize this till I got grown, that my mother was the one that maintained the finances in the house. He was the breadwinner, But my mother was the bread keeper, you know. He made the money, but my mother counted the money. And I didn't even realize that, you know, until I got older and I looked at how he handled things. And I said to myself, gee, my mother was under a lot of pressure, because I realize now that she was the one that kept that house going financially, because with him by himself, there was no way that he handled it. So he basically gave her the money and told her to handle everything, because she ran that thing like a well-oiled machine. She really did. So she handled the money, but he just gave it to her. And I applaud her for that, even though she's gone. So I had to take over in that regard, and I was literally giving up my unemployment checks. So to make extra money, I started going online, excuse me, and finding out there was ways that you could make money doing data entry through content, writing content. And they have these things called content mills, and I don't know if you ever heard of them, but basically what they are is there are companies where you can apply to, and they will pay you per word to write descriptions for different products, to write copy for different websites and things like that. And what you do is you submit your resume, or you submit submit your experience on a form, and you apply to them. And there's different sites that you go to, like Textbroker. Well, goodness, what was the other one? There was another one, Crowd Content. There's another one. Matter of fact, I'll get the links and I will post them on my community page in a couple of days for you guys. And what you do is, once you submit your application, they review it to see if you've got credentials and the experience. And I think you had to do a typing test. It's been a while, don't give me the line. I think you have to do a typing test or a vocabulary spelling test to see if you can do the content, and to see if you know sentence structure and things like that. And then what they'll do is they'll put you in as a author or a content creator. And what you do is you log in every day, and they have like a list of different topics that you can choose from, that you choose to write on. And different businesses will solicit people to write copy for them. It could be a tourist company that wants you to write copy about their website. It could be a online catalog that wants you to describe their products. And they'll tell you how many words they want, and they give you a description of how they want it written. Like, for instance, just to give you an example, let's say it's a beer company online that wants you to wants you to describe their beer, and they'll give you a picture of it and say, write a lively description of this IPA ale in 100 words or less. And they'll give you a time frame to do it. We want it done in 24 hours. We want it done in 48 hours. And you go ahead and you submit that, and they'll say, well, we'll pay 2 cents a word or 1 cent a word or whatever, which will equal like $1. Okay. So you go ahead and you do that. You'll go ahead and click yes, I'll accept. And the clock start ticking. So you go ahead and you start, go ahead and you do your little description or whatever, and you submit it, and you wait for feedback. The client's either going to say, yes, we accept, and the company will go ahead and pay you and put it in your account, or the client will say revision needed. And if a revision is needed, then they'll give you another time frame, whatever it is, another 24 hours or whatever the case may be, to revise it, to send it back so you can get that money back. Okay? And welcome again if you're coming in to join me. So once you reach a certain payment threshold, with it's $10, $20 or whatever in your account, and you've done so many, then you can go ahead and cash out to your PayPal, Payoneer, or whatever your fintech is that you have attached to your account, because you have to have an online payment, a fintech attached to your account so you can get paid. Then they'll go ahead and they'll pay you. The company will pay you. So that's what I was doing, because my dad needed my assistance as far as getting around and being in the house. He didn't mind being home, but I didn't want to be away from him because his arthritis would cause his joints. He had osteoarthritis, and osteoarthritis is more like in the bones, and sometimes it causes him where his bones would lock up, his hands would lock up, his legs would lock up. He would have trouble, he would sit down and not be able to get up sometimes. So his mobility would be limited. And with that, I just didn't feel, if I left the house, it would be for a very short period of time, like to go to the store and things like that. And I would let somebody know that I was going to the store. So I hardly ever left the house. Um, and if it was, it would be while he was taking a nap or something like that. Um, and so I just made it a point to be like his caretaker. So to make extra money, that's why I decided to start doing the computer work. So to make the extra money was the content mills. So eventually, over a period of time, regular clients would see your work and they would ask for you, and you would become a preferred writer for them. And that means you would start making more money per word. So instead of making 1 or 2 cents per word, because you're a preferred writer, you would start making 4 or 5 cents per word, which is good because if you start getting like 200 words or 300 words, then that's $10 or $15 per description, which means you could be easily making a couple $100s a week, which I was at that level where I was making between $150 to $200 a week for a preferred, for preferred, people. And this was after about maybe 3 or 4 months of doing this every day. And I would literally treat this like a job because I was working between the two companies, because you could work for as many companies as you want because you're freelance. You're a freelance content writer. And they recommend that you do that, sign up for at least 2 or 3 different companies. So I treated it as a job. I would get up in the morning, fix Dad's breakfast, make sure that he's, bathed and ready to go, and then he would sit and watch TV, get on the computer, do whatever he wants to do. And I would get online and I would treat it as a job, like I'm going to be working all day long. And I'd be like, Dad, okay, you good to go? I'm gonna get on the computer and go to work. And then I would give myself lunch breaks, and I would literally pretend like it's a job, and I would work at least 8, 9, 10 hours a day on the computer doing content. And I would give myself coffee breaks, give myself work breaks. I would do those things because I would treat it like a regular job because that's how serious I was. So one client in particular, so-called client, was an outfitter that I written copy for, um, outfits and their sporting goods and things like that, and they were based out of Boston, and I'm doing air quotes for a reason. They were based out of Boston, and I had written for them before, and they paid me before. Well, they gave me an official offer, and this now we're up to the fall. I would say September or October, and by that time I had established a system with a lot of my family members as to how they need to pay more attention to Dad. It had been more apparent, me telling them exactly what's going on, giving them more insight as to what's really going on with him because there were a lot of things they didn't know. There were a couple of episodes where Dad had to go to the hospital where, they're starting to find out, okay, we got to pay more attention. So there's been more of a system established as to how to take care of Dad. So I was like, okay, well then I can go. Um, so they offered me a job in in Boston area, and there were some things that happened as to why I needed to leave, and I'm debating on whether or not I should go into that because it's kind of a sensitive situation as to why I needed to leave. But it was some unfolding family drama as to why I decided to go ahead and leave. But um, and I'm not quite ready to talk about that yet. So I'm still praying and meditating on that, and I might share with you that later on. But anyway, this so-called outfitter actually offered me a freelance position, but it's a hybrid freelance position where it was going to pay me some really good money to do the same thing, but the only requirement is that I come into the office. I forgot what it was. It was going to be once a week or something like that, which means I would have to live in the region. Literally. I would have to live in the region. Excuse me, I'm looking at my computer here. I would have to live in the region, and that means I would have to move to the Boston area. Well, my daughter was already living in the Boston area, going to graduate school at the time. So that gave me a chance to be close to her as well. So I was like, okay, well, at least I know somebody that's nearby that I can, be close to. And I said I could just get a little place or whatever. So I looked up extended stays, and I had a little money saved up, and I said, well, I could stay extended stay until, since these people are paying me all this money every single week, it'll be easy for me to find a little place to stay after about a month or so staying extended stay. I'll just move over to whatever. So they set up a meeting for me to go up there, and I caught the train, and I went up there, packed up my stuff, and went on up there. And had the meeting with the people. They had it set up in the warehouse in Boston. It was near, what they call it? It's a Beacon Hill, Bunker Hill. But anyway, it's not too far from the downtown area. But it was in the warehouse office or whatever. We sat at a regular table, a bunch of younger people. And they were talking to me, and it seems like a regular business meeting, telling me about the outline. They had the PowerPoint going on, and, just like any other business, telling me about their vision and how the company was set up, and they had the laptops and and it was just a whole office set up. But, it was a shell of an office because they were talking, it was a new office that they said they were setting up. So I get it that it wasn't full of furniture, but they still had, they had a little bit of stuff in there. It looks like they were building it up, okay? So there was no reason for me to be suspicious that it wasn't real, okay? It just looks like it was an office in the making, and that they were, setting it up. No problem, right? So they went ahead and gave me some more assignments and everything, and I went back to the hotel room, back to the extended stay, and went ahead and did the work. And I received one check from them. And then the following week, I did a whole bunch of work, and I didn't get another check. Now, I had some money in the bank to last me for a few weeks. Now, the following week, I didn't get a check, and they kept telling me about this delay and that delay, and I said, well, yeah, I understand that. And I said, but I'm staying at Extended Stay, and I need to pay. And the following week rolled around, and all of a sudden, I didn't hear anything from anybody. And when I'm calling folks, I'm getting voicemails, I'm getting the emails aren't being answered. They're not being returned, but they're not being answered. And the second week rolls around. Now, I done dipped into my money to pay for the room. And all of a sudden, after the second week, I didn't hear anything from anybody. Now, when I send in the emails the second week, the emails are coming back undeliverable. Phone calls still going to voicemail. By the time the end of the second week rolls around, I'm flipping out because I'm down to my last money. All of a sudden, I'm going into my third week. Now, I left for the area in December. Now, all of a sudden, we're getting into mid-January. By the time the end of the third week rolls around, I'm borrowing money from family and friends just to keep this room. By this time, the first snowfall had already fallen down heavy. Now, I was in Providence, Rhode Island. I wasn't in Boston because the rooms were so outrageous in Boston. I couldn't afford one, so I got one in Providence as far as extended stay, and I would just catch the train because I figure I'll just catch the train into Boston, which was only 45 minutes to go meet up with the people. Until I found a place to stay, I'll stay the extended stay and just go to the meetings in Boston as needed, which I'm glad I did. But that was like over a foot of snow on the ground, didn't know what to do. So I'm asking for money. So by the time the end of the third week rolled around, I said to myself, I need to take my behind home. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much, and good morning to you. So I'm panicking, don't know what to do. So I said to myself, I might as well just don't go on home. I said, these people done scammed me. I said, here it is 2 whole weeks. I'm running out of money. I'm sitting up here in a place I don't know anything about. There's a ton of snow around here. I said, let me call some family members and see if I can get somebody to get me a ticket home. Well, this is the problem. I get on the phone and I start asking folks about a ticket to get home. Ain't nobody got any money. And the thing is, I'm down to living day to day at the hotel now because I don't even have enough money for a week. So I'm borrowing folks from classmates and people like that, and I ain't heard from in years just to do day to day. And I was like, you know what? And a few people who can help me, they won't have any money for like 2, 3 days, and I'm sitting up here, I'm down day to day. This is how bad it's got. So I'm like, you know what do I do? So something said go online and start looking up shelters and see if there's somewhere you can stay for a couple of days until somebody can get you a ticket. So I went ahead and got online, and they've had this little database, like an A to Z database of different shelters that you could go to. Now, mind you, now I didn't know anything about a shelter system or anything like that. Never been homeless before. Don't know how the system works. So the first place that started with an A. I forgot what it was. When I called, it went straight to voicemail. I think this was a Tuesday or Wednesday in January. And I said, I ain't got time for no voicemail. So the next one that started with an A, they were telling me that I had to be an abuse survivor, or if I was running from my husband or something like that. Well, I've been divorced for many years, so that didn't apply to me, so they couldn't help me. Then the third one asked me, and then the third one was the one that I called, and the gentleman picked up the phone. He was very nice, and he asked me who I was and where I was, and I told him what part of Providence what I was in, and the situation I was in, about how I got scammed by this company, and how I moved up here about a job, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, give me 10 minutes. I'm going to have a lady from the women's program call you back. Well, I'm saying to myself, this is the third call. Ain't nobody going to call me back. And I hung up the phone, and I was like, Lord, what am I going to do? I'm crying my eyes out. Not even 5 minutes later, a woman calls me back, and her name is Sue. And Sue, if you're watching, God bless you. Sue called me back, and she was with the women's division of the Paralegal with this program. And I said to myself, this must be a serious program. You got a women's division, okay? So she calls me back, and she said, hi, my name is Sue. She said, what is your name? And I told her where I was from and what my situation was. And she said, okay, where are you? And I told her the name of the hotel and everything. And she said, okay. She said, well, how soon can you be packed? And I said, well, I could be packed, blah, 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 blah. She said, okay. Well, she said, I'm going to be coming in a white van to come get you. She said, but let me explain to you what the program is about very briefly. She told me, she said, this is a homeless program. We provide temporary housing to women who are either financially, who can't support themselves financially. She said, a lot of the women, I thought I'd let you know, have previous substance abuse problems or struggling financially. And some of them may have had problems with the law. But she said, do you have a problem with that? I said, no, ma'am. I said, because to be honest with you, she said, I said, to be honest with you, I previously had a substance abuse problem, but I am clean and I do not have any struggles with that. And I said, and I don't have any problems with people who have had problems with the law as long as I'm safe. And she said, yes, ma'am. She said, you won't have any problems with that. She said, the place that you're going to be is going to be in a room where you're going to be sharing with other people. She said, do you have a problem with that? Because she said our facilities are, rehab, our facilities are restored Victorian homes where we have multiple people in a room. So you're going to be sharing a room with other women. You will be sharing bathroom and kitchen facilities. But she said, we have a lot of rules here. Do you have a problem with that? I said, no. I said, as long as it doesn't cause any physical harm to me or anything, I don't have a problem with that. She said, okay. And she said, we also have classes and groups you're going to be required to attend, but these classes and groups are required so they can assist you in order to help you get back on your feet. And she said, we have resources where we can help get you assistance, from the government, if you need IDs, if you need education, if you need food stamps, Medicaid, anything like that, job assistance, computer assistance, we have that for free to your disposal. Our programs could be anywhere from 90 days to 180 days, it depends. And she said, you will be assigned a case manager to help you. She said, do you understand these things? I said, yes. She said, do you have any questions right now? I said, no. She said, well, if that being understood, and she said, thank you for coming in, by the way. She said, she says, do you still want me to come get you? I said, yes. And I said, thank you. And I don't know if she had bat wings or not, but she was there in 15 minutes. And she came and got me. And she said, we do have another rule. She said, we do not allow any cell phones in the room. So she said, you're going to have your cell phone locked up. She said, because you do understand we do have people that have addictive problems and things like that. She said, we're going to have your phone locked up. She said, if you do want to use your phone, she said, you're going to have to come into the office and use it. So I was at the mind frame at that time where I kind of needed to be by myself. I kind of needed to be quiet. I kind of needed to regroup anyway. So I'm thinking along the lines of, okay, well, let me just make a couple of phone calls, let everybody know that I'm okay, and that I need to take some time out to just, regroup and organize some things, and that I'll be in touch. So I made it a point to just go ahead and readjust, and I went ahead and got in, and I shared a room with 3 other women. It was a huge bedroom. I had my own bed, my own dresser space, and I had to share the bathroom, share the kitchen. We had chores we needed to do. There were groups that we had to go through during the day, and of course there were support groups during the night. And being in that experience as a former addict, sometimes if you're a former addict and you do not, if you go through a stressful situation, you have to be careful if you're a former addict, because for some people who are not fully healed, they might wind up reverting to those habits. So not only had to think about the fact that, number one, I'm technically homeless, number two, I'm in a place I've never been before, and number three, I have to think about the fact that I've got to maintain my sobriety through this whole time. It was extremely stressful for me. So having to go through my mind with that the whole time, it was an experience for me, and needless to say, it affected my psyche quite a bit, to the point where my entire outlook on life has changed. And a lot of people be like, dang, that sucks. But I look back on it now, and that was the best thing that happened to me in my life. The best thing. And I think I'm going to stop right now at this point as far as me getting into the shelter, because I didn't realize how much there was. And we're already at 47 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a part 2 next week on this, because I want to get into detail as to what happened in the shelter, as to what made me change my outlook on things. Because the person that I went in as, I thought I was A-okay, but the person that I came out as is the person that you see today. And believe me, the person that my family knew before I went into the shelter is not the person that you see here today. And there are some people right now who are kind of having a little bit of an issue with it, needless to say, and are suffering some growing pains, but in a good way. So, and also being in the shelter, that's part of the reason why I'm here today. I'm trying to, spread my message, because there were a lot of things I was exposed to that I thought I knew, but I didn't know. So it was a transforming experience for me. I had a chance to do my dark walk of the soul, as so to speak. And you thought you knew who you were until you go through something. I thought I knew who I was when I went through rehab back when I got clean in 2009. When I stopped using in 2009, and when I went through rehab in 2000, in the 2 years after that, I thought I knew who I was. That was one transformation, but I had to do another transformation when I went through the homeless situation. There were some other things that needed to be done inside of me. And I'm going to share some of the things that I learned about the system in regards to homelessness, and some of the situations that I encountered, and the underground economy involving homelessness that might be helpful to you, and some tips that I can share as well. I thank you very much for coming. I am grateful for your support. And stay tuned next week, because there's going to be a part 2 to this. There is. Again, I'm the Peachy Pathfinder. My name is Deanna. I thank you very much for coming today, and I will see you guys next time.